What is up, guys? Frosty 0232 here today for another Frosty Features. Today we have another sub-requested character. He is one of the OG characters of the game, Cyclops, sub-requested by Rolfkieran, and we're gonna dive right on in. We're gonna dive right on in. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't been a part of this, what this is a comic book background on the tunes that you use in Marvel Strike Force. And I'm saying it a little late, but that's okay. According to Scopely, this is the section where I show their description in the blog post about who they are and such. But due to the fact that Cyclops was an OG character, he was original gangster character in the game, he had no blog post because blog posts didn't exist when the game had just come out. So here we are. This is the original loading screen as far as I could find. He's one of these original people. Yes. No blog post, no according to Scopely today. Cyclops. Name, Scott Summers. That's our man of the hour, by the way. Name, Scott Summers. First appearance is X-Men #1, 1963. Scott Summers is often referred to as the first X-Man. He was there at the beginning and likely will be there at the end. Powers and abilities. His only power is Optic Blast. So, Scott shoots these concussive bolts, essentially this concussive energy out of his eyes. Its power can range heavily, but at the end of the day, he has to wear a visor because he can't control his Optic Blasts. He also was a master of trigonometry and a very good strategist, so he can also make these blasts kind of do bank shots off of walls and things, which come in quite often. He is considered an alpha level mutant, which is sort of like a baseline, but also his power, the way the comics works, his power scales in a pretty crazy way as well. So, there it is. But yes, those are technically his only powers and abilities. I also want to make a quick argument. He does not technically, by any definition, have super strength, but he has been involved in hand-to-hand combat with the likes of Wolverine, who has superhuman strength, and Captain America, who also obviously has superhuman strength. So that's something very important to take into consideration. Aliases. Captain Krakoa. Cyclops is Cyclops until he's not Cyclops, but he doesn't go by people call him a lot of things, but really at the end of the day, his name is Cyclops, and that's what he goes by. There is we're going to talk about it in the notable events, but there is a short period of time where he goes by the alias of Captain Krakoa. Affiliations. So, essentially, if there's an X in the beginning of the name, Cyclops is a part of it. In Marvel Strike Force, we see Cyclops in both Extreme X-Men and Uncanny X-Men. He is an original founder of X-Men in the comics, and he also is a mainstay character in X-Factor. He shows, maybe not mainstay, but he shows up a lot in X-Factor in many Council of Krakoa kind of situations. Just pretty much anything that involved with the X-Men, he's got a part in it some kind of way. He also leads X-Force, and he has his hands in New Mutants a little bit. Like, he's kind of all over. In fact, the way the comics kind of push it, for years and years and years, we have this thing where it's like, it's Magneto and it's Professor X, and those are the two branches, those are the pillars of mutantdom. And now, the way a lot of things look in comics, and it's a little shaky now in actual, like, up-to-date comics, but now it very much is Professor X, Magneto, and Cyclops. He's kind of become his own. He went from being the poster child for the X-Men and Xavier's Boy Scout to being his own free-thinking kind of individual. Background. He's Alaskan. He's from Anchorage, Alaska. And he often will, Cyclops, we're going to talk about it here in a second. Cyclops has these fits of pouting a lot, and he will go to his home, cabin kind of situation in Alaska when he's pouting. So it's important to know he's from Anchorage, Alaska. So, who died? You can't have a superhero or supervillain without somebody dying. In Cyclops' case, we have a situation where, so first off, number one big thing, what I'm going to be struggling with and what all of you are going to struggle with as far as Cyclops goes, is Cyclops' family history is, I'm gonna put this out there. My comic book people, hit me up in the comments if you disagree. Cyclops' family history is one of the most complicated things in my hair is crazy. Is one of the most complicated things in comic books, is his family history. So, his parents sort of died. It was in a plane with his father and mother and little brother Alex, and a Shi'ar spacecraft materialized out of nowhere, and in the midst of doing so, the plane crashes into the Shi'ar tech. Regular planes don't stand up to Shi'ar tech. Shi'ar, for my people in the back, kind of similar to the Kree Empire, but not. They are more or less, they're pretty human looking aliens that are extremely, extremely advanced in tech. It's where the X-Men get most of their tech from, is the Shi'ar Empire. So anyway, it explodes. Alex and Scott are left to fall to the earth out of a plane, and they believe that their parents are dead because the plane that they were in exploded, when in reality they were teleported by the Shi'ar Empire onto the spacecraft. Wow, they just let the kids fall to the earth. But luckily, when plunging to your death from thousands of feet in the air, one's mutant abilities tend to manifest, and Cyclops has his mutant power manifest, and he uses his optic blast to slow down his and Alex's fall to the ground. This, however, does not save them all the way, and Cyclops and Alex are both injured in the fall. Cyclops gets brain damage, which also might explain why he's such a bag. Everyone hates Scott Summers. Scott's kind of a jerk, in every way fathomable. He's a Boy Scout to a fault. He very much, he looks down on people that don't follow the rules, and he thinks he should have everything his way. And legitimately, I said it earlier, he's a big old pouty boy, and anytime he doesn't get his way, he either leaves the X-Men for extended periods of time, or he goes to Alaska and pouts. And sometimes he goes to the moon and pouts. Or sometimes he goes back to Mars and pouts, right? Or he goes and hides in a treehouse and he pouts. Also, the dude is the worst husband slash boyfriend slash whatever the heck you want to think about ever. He's tempted by every woman ever, and as soon as his current female is out of the room, he might as well not be affiliated with them at all. And he just pretty much presume, if they're like, oh, Jean Grey died again, he's like, oh man, she's dead. What am I gonna do? Better do it with some other chick. So some of not all of some of his notable female exploits, of course, including Jean Grey. Madeline Pryor, after Jean Grey was dead and he didn't double check that, ran into the Jean Grey clone and was like, you're my wife now. Emma Frost, after he breaks up with Madeline Pryor, we got Emma Frost coming in the fray. Psylocke shows up, and there's a love triangle between Jean Grey and Psylocke and Scott, and Scott just can't get over Psylocke for some reason. Colleen Wing and Lee Forrester, and more, right? Having multiple partners isn't that big of a deal, but when you're doing it in an unfaithful, unconsensual way with your other partner, it's kind of a baggy move, man. So anyway, everybody hates Scott. He pouts and he's unfaithful, which is not a good combination. Why he can't turn it off. So we talked about he fell out of the air. So here's a big thing about Scott Summers. He has to wear this visor because he cannot not shoot his optic blasts. When him and Alex fell out of the sky, he injures his head and he succumbs himself. His brain is injured. And he is found by a doctor who looks them over. And they both have amnesia, and the doctor is Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister's like, yo, y'all's genes are pretty cool, but Scott's are better than Alex's. Alex, you're going to an orphanage. Zoop! And he puts them up for adoption and gets rid of them because their parents are gone, orphans. And then he puts Cyclops in an orphanage, and he's like, I'm going to experiment the living crap out of you. And he does experiments, and he puts mental blocks in his head to make him forget about all these experiments. And he finds out that the head trauma that he received from falling from the sky damaged a part of his brain, so that it would be the whatever optic kind of situation he's got going, where he would be able to control his powers You find throughout the comics that by various means, he gains the ability to control these things, but almost every time he loses it again. So Mr. Sinister devises he finds out that ruby quartz can help manage, it will actually stop his beams. So he creates the first sunglasses Cyclops uses that are made of ruby quartz to let him be able to control it. So he's just got to pull him down to hit. Eventually, being found, after running away from being tortured by Mr. Sinister, he runs into Jack of Diamonds. Jack of Diamonds is a famous thief, and Jack of Diamonds is like, I like your optic blast thingy, let's do crime. And Cyclops is like, let's do crime, I'm a future jerk, might as well start early. And in doing so, he catches the attention of Xavier. Xavier finds him, starts to training, and gives him his visor where he can actually kind of flip it on and off. Also, so I talked about the Mr. Sinister being like, oh, y'all's jeans are tight. So, get it? It's a pun. Mr. Sinister is obsessed with Cyclops. Half of Cyclops' stories end up with Mr. Sinister, a clone of Mr. Sinister, or a Mr. Sinister crony grabbing somebody and doing something to them because their genes are awesome. Essentially, Mr. Sinister, and Mr. Sinister's not necessarily wrong, Mr. Sinister looks at Scott Summers' genes and he is like, you have the genes that can essentially make a mutant messiah. One way or the other, you have the potential for your offspring to be the end-all mutant, the strongest thing to exist ever. I want to make your babies in clones, right? And also, with that, Mr. Sinister very much was the, you should only procreate with somebody who's worth it. Jean Grey's worth it. Oh, Jean Grey's dead? No problem. I made a clone. Her name's Madeline Pryor. Make a baby, Cyclops. And then he's like, oh, there's a lady that isn't the person I'm in love with. Let's make a baby. She looks pretty similar anyway. And then they do. Yay! In alternate realities, so we're going to talk about in the 616 reality, Frosty Future, we typically stick to Marvel 616. In the Age of Apocalypse storyline, we do have his progeny being Nate Gray, that being the mutant Jesus of X-Man, right? So in the 616 canon, we do have stuff like that. So, as I said before, Cyclops' family history is one of the most convoluted things in all of Marvel, so I'm only going to try to point out the very important relationships he has and not go through all. Usually, a lot of the times I'm pretty all-encompassing with the relationships, but in this situation, this is just the ones that matter to today. So, Christopher and Catherine Summers, Christopher Summers being Corsair, are his parents. Alex and Gabriel Summers are his brothers. That would be Havoc and Vulcan. Adam Namari is his half-brother. Naramani is his half-brother. Jean Grey and Madeline Pryor, ex-wives. Jean Grey, only an ex-wife because she likes to die a lot. So they are technically still married, but she dies, and so I know the lines get blurred for Cyclops and society when they're dead. But since mutants don't stay dead, I'm just saying she's an ex-wife, but she is. But he was married to Madeline Pryor and did get a divorce, and that stuck. And then Alex started having a relationship with Madeline Pryor. Frosty features Madeline Pryor, I think, exists, and you can check that out. It does. And we talk about Havoc quite a bit. Nathan Christopher Charles Summers, son. This is Cable. Cable is, and it's a weird time loopy thing. If you know the situation with Shatterstar and Longshot, it's very similar here. But it's like a time displaced thing. He rears Cable, and then he sends him back in time, and then Cable is raised by Jean Grey adopted mother and Scott Summers' father. Cable's mom is Madeline Pryor. That's who he has the kid with. Yes. And then Hope Summers, by some craziness I don't even understand, is Scott's granddaughter, but it's not Cable's biological daughter, but it is Scott's biological granddaughter because comics. And it's the daughter of a firefighter, the female firefighter, but we don't know who the dad is. But it's not Cable, supposedly, but that is her adopted dad. But she is biologically related to Scott Summers. Clones? Who knows? But The genetics are there, and Hope Summers is the 616 mutant messiah. Woohoo! All right, notable events. We do not have to. I have talked about Avengers versus X-Men a little bit. I feel like this is a better time to actually approach it in a little bit more of an all-encompassing way. Avengers versus X-Men is a very fun event, and it sort of makes sense. It all starts with Nova. We all know and love Nova and Marvel Strike Force. Nova crashes into New York City from the space, and he's like, "It's coming." And we all find out, as a wonderful reading comic audience, it is the Phoenix is on its way, and the most likelihood, essentially, Phoenix obviously has ruined everybody's days multiple times, has killed Jean Grey and other people, and in this situation, everybody's like, oh, Hope Summers is going to be the new host for the Phoenix Force, and that's an issue because Hope Summers is hella strong. Hope Summers, you can kind of think of her like Rogue a little bit. She can copy people's powers. They do not have to be mutants, and she can do it as long as she wants, and she automatically is extremely highly skilled at all these things she copies, right? And she can do more than one at a time. So she's definitely Omega level mutant, very, very strong. And so everybody's like, oh, Hope Summers is going to be the new Phoenix Force. And Captain America's like, yeah, we need her to be dead or something, because that's not cool. And Cyclops is like, we can handle it. She can handle it. Back off, Starboy. And they get in a fight. Illustrated to my right. And they ultimately, this whole thing kind of becomes a will the Phoenix Force destroy the planet or what have you. They get into it. Hope, so Cyclops was actively training Hulk, so Hope runs away, and after the initial fight, they sort of there's a situation. The X-Men kind of brood on this for a while, and then they're like, we're gonna attack the Avengers on the moon. They go to the moon, and they're fighting, and it sort of seems kind of pointless. The whole thing is everybody's looking for Hope, right? And the character, not the idea. Right? And so they're in the moon and they're fighting and they're like, let's go. And then all of a sudden we find an unconscious Thor plummeting out of space, and he crashes. There's a lot of people falling from the sky and crashing in the middle of stuff in Avengers vs. X-Men, but Thor hits the moon and he's like, uh-oh. And the Phoenix shows up. So that Nova was like, it's coming. So now the Phoenix is there. And in the fight between the Avengers and X-Men, the Phoenix is like, you know what? So the X-Men in question here are the ones that become the Phoenix 5, because the Phoenix is like, I'm going to divide my host powers up between you 5, which is, let's see if I can do this from memory. It's Wolverine, Colossus, Magic, Scott, and Emma Frost. I think it's Wolverine. Did I get that? Did I write this down? I didn't. All right, good. Most importantly, Namor over, yes, and the chat corrected me. It wasn't not Wolverine, it was Namor. But yes, those are the Phoenix 5. And so Phoenix imbued their powers into those 5, and those 5 just wiped Avengers. They go back to the planet, and they're like, we're going to take the planet over, and it's going to be great. And so they made war illegal in things, and essentially kind of had this Iron Fist sort of situation. And the Avengers work as a sort of a rebellion. And the Avengers are making strategic attacks against the X-Men kind of situation, and they're making these attacks or whatever, and eventually they are able to take out different sections of the X-Men sort of empire. Then infighting causes Magic and Colossus to beat the crap out of each other, and the Phoenix Force leaves them. So the way the Phoenix 5 work, if one is defeated, its power goes to the remaining Phoenix 5, right? So we have 2 down, 3 left, being Namor, Emma, and Cyclops. And the power is divided between them, and they get a big power boost. And then Cyclops starts getting really, really, really proactive about trying to take out the Avengers, and starts starts sort of hunting them down. And at this point, people are like, oh, this regime's not good. I don't like that. And that gets to Hope, and Hope's like, all right, I'm sticking with the Avengers, who hide Hope in Kunlun. So eventually, due to many factors, Namor ends up losing the Phoenix 5 power, and it goes specifically to Emma and Cyclops. And with this additional power boost, Emma is able to see through the various mystical walls of Kunlun and see that Hope is there. So all of the Avengers go to Kunlun, and X-Men go to not X-Men, Cyclops by himself. So Namor, he loses his stuff he goes through Wakanda, and he essentially tries to ace Wakanda by himself, which is why he loses. And then so Cyclops is like, that didn't work out very well for Namor. Let me try it, but with Kunlun. So he goes to Kunlun, but with the additional power of Namor, and Emma still has hers, he goes and he pretty much wipes out Kunlun. But in this situation, he finds Hope, and Hope's like, yeah, he also beats Xiao the dragon that gives Iron Fist his powers. And with that, Hope's like, Cyclops, back up. And Scarlet Witch is also there because, you can't have a huge multiversal event situation without her being a big part of it. And so Cyclops is like, you're coming with me, Hope. And Hope's like, as if. And she copies Scarlet Witch's powers, and she copies Xiao Lao's powers, and she becomes super mega strong, and she blasts Cyclops to the moon, giving her a little bit of time and to move forward. So Cyclops is like, if I want to complete this, I'm going to need all of the Phoenix Force. So he goes essentially to, once again, Cyclops is a bit of an a-hole, and he decides, hey, this person that I'm very close to and have had relations with, etc. I have a lot of respect for, and she's my teammate. I'm gonna go beat the crap out of her and get her Phoenix 5 part. But eventually he can't. And there's a whole thing, but he gets it anyway. But it's so strong he can't control it, and he becomes Dark Phoenix. And Dark Phoenix likes to do things like destroy universes. So the X-Men and the Avengers team up against Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix kills Professor X because somebody's big's gotta die. And then we see Hope return, and she takes on the Phoenix Force and Scarlet Witch's powers, and she is the one that is able to dethrone the ultimately strong, fully Phoenix-fied Scott Summers, and she takes him out, and the Avengers vs. X-Men is over, and Cyclops is in a heap of trouble. Woot! Cool! That's Avengers vs. X-Men from Cyclops' perspective. Krakoa! So, when I first got back into reading comics pretty hardcore back in 2020, I came back into the kind of reignited X-Men run, starting over at number 1, where they are essentially it's the X-Men team is a new X-Men team that is elected by the Hellfire Club. This specific team being Polaris, Rogue, Cyclops, Wolverine, X-23 Wolverine, and Sunfire and Sync. And they are these ambassadors from Krakoa. So eventually, the mutants are like, F Earth, we're gonna have our own planet. They had their own nation, and then it became a planet. They terraformed Mars with Arakko, so they're like the nation of Krakoa on the planet Arakko. It's a little confusing. So anyway, they are the Krakoan X-Men, essentially. And with this, Emma Frost purchases a section of Central Park, and Forge creates a treehouse, which that serves as their base of operations. And Cyclops is the lead, and he's being really, really cryptic and angry at this point. And there is a situation where, in a fight with a villain called Dr. Stasis, Cyclops got publicly killed. He bleeds out in an alley, and everybody watches him die. And at this point, after Krakoa comes up, and we've talked about this a few times, because this is also post-Quiet Council and things like that, but they figured out how to revive X-Men mutants. So now, instead of random acts of whatever happening to revive people, they're like, no, we have a way we use cloned bodies, and we use magic, and we transfer the minds of the person, the deceased, into the new body. Therefore, they're more or less immortal, so that they can revive dead people very easily. And so with that, they are they're trying to conceal this at first. So Cyclops comes back, and he comes back in the form of Captain. I keep saying it, Captain Krakoa, which does not show the powers of Cyclops, but he has chlorokinesis, which he can control plants, and he can fly. And so he's using this sort of and he's doing this with a battle suit that Forge made. And he serves as Captain Krakoa for a little while until that sort of goes out of the window. Ben Urich kind of gets down their throat. When Ben Urich gets on you, all your secrets are going to be exposed pretty fast. And so he comes out as Cyclops, and then he releases to the world and Ben Urich that they have reviving down, and they are more or less immortal. Which is how the coining of the term Immortal X-Men comes about, is Ben Urich writing it down. There is also a situation where they, after Cyclops is back, they go ahead, because the whole thing is they're trying to raid Dr. Stasis anyway, because they keep getting attacked from this like gaming world situation. So they end up raiding Dr. Stasis's compound, more or less. And with this, we find out that Dr. Stasis is a clone of Mr. Sinister, which is great. So they, but they do it successfully, and yeah. Hold on, I thought I had one more thing to say. Yeah, so all of this saying, a lot of stuff goes on. This is all pretty new. Still, I mean, it's like a couple years old now, but moving from this, we have there's a lot of politics and things. People don't like that the mutants have separated. Which also, think about it. I want to point out the reason why I pointed this out. The whole thing with Magneto and Professor X is, Professor X, we can live with humankind. It's okay, Magneto. We are stronger than them. We don't need to live with them. We are better. So with the situation with Krakoa, Magneto wins. Just so we're aware, and Professor X is revived and brought back into the situation with Krakoa. But I just wanted to point out that in the current story, more or less, that wins. But people keep trying to take down Krakoa, and they end up doing it. And then you have the Fall of X storyline, which we're slightly past that right now. So we're coming out of that. So the fall of the X-Men and Krakoa is a big thing. All the stuff is pretty new. Check it out. It's a lot of fun to read. It's all kind of based off of Jonathan Hickman's. It's the follow-up, more or less, to like Dawn of X and things like that. So it's coming off of a lot of really solid work. And all the stuff I read in it, I thought was just fantastic. So I highly, highly recommend it. Marvel Strike Force doesn't care about power levels, but here on Frosty Features, we do! Now, the way this works, if you are a multiversal threat, that means you are a threat not to just your reality, but all realities of all places of all times, right? You can topple the multiverse at a whim. Universal means that you can end your reality, perhaps hop on over to another reality and end that one. Cosmic means you are a threat on the low end on a planetary scale. You can take out things like planets, or you can, with enough time and effort, you can take out things like solar systems and galaxies. Nuclear means you have power equivalent to that of a nuclear bomb, leveling things like small cities and up to a planetary body with enough time and effort. Super Soldier means you are beyond all capabilities of human ability. Our poster boy template is the Marvel poster boy himself, Captain America, obviously, past human peaks. Because at city level, at Super Soldier, you are able to break through things like brick walls and level things like a city block on the high end. City means you are a human being that is trained to the absolute and utter peak of human ability. So, this is where you find a lot of our mercenaries, a lot of our secret agents, our spies, ninjas, things like that. In Marvel, they are the high end of the city level. And then there's Greg. Greg is the undead Asgardian that's spawned by Hela in Marvel Strike Force. And on his own, on his lonesome, Greg's not really that much to deal with, y'all. So, in the event that I am just kind of walking down the street with a fishing pole with plushies attached to the end because I'm doing whatever you do with that, and I run across Greg, and Greg's like, we're gonna fight. I theoretically, as a normal, full-grown human being, could take on Greg. Greg, for the sake of argument, and undead Asgardian physiology, is equivalent to that of a regular human being. So, in the case of Cyclops, debate time. So, what this works out to be, right? Cyclops he's a one-trick pony, right? He shoots his beams. He has the potential to control the beams, and he does do bank shots with the beams, but that's it. So his beams are the sum of all of his power. He also, as I stated earlier, does not have super strength, but he does have super strength. It's not stated. So even if he does have super strength, he is on the lower end of that. So his power level is going to be, it has nothing to do with his physicality. It's going to have everything to do with the strength of his beam. The strength of his beam, if you're Cyclops and a big old jerk, right? Cyclops claims that he can blow through a whole planet and blow the planet up, right? This is never tested, nor explored by anybody but Cyclops. And due to the fact that Cyclops is sussy, I'm just going to go ahead and say that his opinion doesn't matter, right? It's everybody else's observations of Cyclops that actually put us into a perspective where we can make a decent decision. So Cyclops will tell you he is a cosmic level threat. What other assertions of people as far as Cyclops' strength is gone, it has never been accurately measured, but he can take down and hurt things up to the strengths of somebody like Hulk, right? It also is said that he does have the power to blow through something like a mountain. Mountain being be in that golden area between city block and planetary body, right? So mountain, being able to level something like a mountain, we will put Cyclops firmly in the nuclear. He's right in the middle. He's not in the bottom. He's not on the top. He's in the middle of a nuclear power level. And if for some reason the writers decide that what he said was true about himself, he could be much stronger than that. But as far as we are aware in the comics and of assertions of various scientists and Professor X and various people in the comics, we here on Frosty Features, we say Cyclops, nuclear power level, and still taken out pretty easily by super soldiers and city level people. All you gotta do is sneak up behind him, right? Can't shoot you from behind. Well, bank shots, whatever. And according to Scopely, there is not much I can do there because he predates blog posts. So that is Frosty Features Cyclops. I hope that you all have a good time. Cyclops has a very complicated story, a very convoluted story, and I even got some stuff wrong on this already. So let me know if I got anything wrong in the comics or your favorite Cyclops moments below or anything I missed that you feel like should have been included. I would love to hear from you here on YouTube. Please like, share, and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything but a couple of clicks, and it helps the stream out so much. I really appreciate it. As a reminder, I stream 8 a.m. Central Standard Times on the link above where we do Frosty Features live. I hope that you all have a fantastic weekend. Most importantly, y'all, stay cool.